what's I going to talk? Okay, our senses. How many senses do we have? Okay, I got one hand up with 5 fingers. You can actually use all of your senses to see a thermal, to possess a thermal, to acknowledge a thermal. Another characteristic that I didn't mention is when that air is going into a column, it sucks air towards it. And so again, on a dead calm day, the prevailing winds can be influenced by thermals. And so if there's a thermal here at Alexi's tripod, the wind is going to point towards that. The wind's going to flow towards that. And so if I'm standing here, I'll have wind at my back. If I'm standing over here, it's coming in on my side. And if I'm over here relative to the thermal, it's coming into my face. And so that's a really good notion to have in your mind, is that thermal is sucking in air. And depending on the activity around you, you may or may not notice it. When it's super windy like this, it's hard to sense a thermal that's even 5 feet over there. But what's neat is you can, when there is a wind, you can start doing some vector math to figure out where the thermal is. And so what does that look like? So the thermal's here, and when there's no wind, the air's all pointing right towards it. Okay, now we're going to add a prevailing wind here. And so what happens is if you're right here relative to the thermal, the green vector and the blue vector add together, and you feel really strong push that direction. Now if you're down here, the blue vector and the green vector add together to resolve just a little wind to the set down. And so this is the resolve vector. And so you know that the wind is dying down, so it probably is behind me if I'm facing this way. And then when you're over here, this vector adds with this vector to point like that. And so you feel the wind is at this angle here, and although it might point to this angle, you need to correct for the thermal. And so that's an important construct here. And so same thing here, these vectors add to be at an angle. And so it might feel like it's, if there was no wind, you might think it's here, or sorry, you might think it's here, but actually it's here. And so you have to account for that wind. And okay, so that's another important concept that'll help us with our 5 senses. So the first one is touch. What can you touch? So like I was saying, when that wind blows, how can you sense the wind blowing? Well, you can feel it on your hands, the back of your legs, your hair if you have any, or lack of hair if you don't have any. That's a touch, and you can feel that wind shifts. Feel that right now? Feel like it came calm all of a sudden? Okay, there's a thermal right here. It's probably over by the cars. And it's going to come, it's going to move over us. It's probably right over us now. And then there's going to be a fill. There's going to be a big, strong gust behind it that pushes it on downwind. And that's the 2 vectors adding together. Okay, so touch, we're feeling it. Although back in the old days, they used to tell you to wear shorts and short sleeves, but that was before the sun was killing everybody. So throw that away. Wear a really thin thing that you can still feel the wind through. So touch. What's the next sense? What's a really hard one you want me to stump you on? What? Smell. Okay. So again, with the wind vector, see all those brown droppings out there? That is literally cow poop that they've spread on the field. And when the thermal's over here, I'll smell the cow poop, when most of the day I haven't smelled the cow poop. So you'll smell that. You also smell trees and exhaust and other things that'll get caught in the thermal and blow it around. That was a harder one, but it is a thing. Okay, then seeing's too easy. What about hearing? How do you think you hear a thermal? Yeah, so there's a couple of things. The wind noise is definitely something. If you're standing next to some trees, you'll hear it rustling as the thermal pulls across it or pulls into it, or the lack of rustling when it's over the thermal. Another one you'll notice is like the road noise will change because of the thermal being between you and the road noise, if you can sense something like that. That one's really subtle, but that is another way that you can hear. What haven't we covered yet? So the taste, can you taste the thermal? That one's harder. My analogy there is the pollen dust and things like that are carried when the thermal. Sometimes you'll get a little bit in the back of your throat or a little taste. That one's really subtle. So taste, not so much. So seeing's the really easy one, and it's really the one we use the most. And there's a lot of things to see when you're looking for a thermal. So I'll go in order of the most useful. The absolute most useful is your buddy is in a thermal. Go where your buddy is. Go poach his thermal. That is number one guaranteed. If you can hold up his sailplane and you're flying a similar sailplane, it'll hold your plane up too. Don't crash into him. We'll talk a little bit about that, but go find your buddy. Next best thing is you see a buzzard circling in the thermal. That's really good. Buzzards, when they see a thermal, they have some different motivations, so I'll cover that, but they will penetrate over. They'll fold their wings back to penetrate better. That's their better penetration mode. And then when they hit the thermal, they'll put their wings out far. They'll stretch their fingertips, their wingtips, and then they'll start a circle. And depending on where you live, they circle different directions. Our ones around here always circle whichever way works best for them. I haven't noticed a preference, but I've heard different birds have preferences. And then they'll drift downwind. And the tricky thing with buzzards is they don't stay in thermals super long unless they're looking to migrate or really go somewhere. They usually are trying to stay relatively close to the ground so that they can smell the dead things. And so they don't get super high typically unless they're going somewhere. And so you'll see them, particularly, I see them about 6 p.m. out here. They'll all get into a big group. And it's sort of like the last thermal of the day. That's what I think of. And they're going to get back to wherever their house is. And so you'll see them group up and go really high and then scatter. And then when they migrate down south, it's really fascinating. I saw about 75 in a thermal way off to the south here. And they all grouped up, again, duskish time, and took off. And then if the weather's changing, you'll see them group up too and use the last thermal. One time I was out here, and I didn't realize it at the time, but there was a front coming, and a big wall of clouds was coming. And I saw all the buzzards who'd just been hanging out all group together and get in this one thermal and take off. And it was just amazing. And I realized that was the last thermal of the day. And they could see off on the horizon these clouds coming. And they knew this was going to be the last thermal of the day. So they took full advantage of it. And that bag's I guess it's going. You get it, Daniel? So they could see off on the horizon that this cloud formation was coming. And okay, we'll use it as a thermal indicator. See what direction the wind's blowing? Downwind. Okay, so that's buzzards. Okay, there's other birds that also use thermals. The smaller birds, the swallows, and a bunch of the smaller little darty birds will use thermals. And what thermals do is when they're coming up off the ground, they'll pick insects up. And they'll concentrate those insects. And so the birds really like to use those and you'll see them circling. And so those are really good indicators of particularly low thermals, is when those birds are picking up dust or bugs in the thermal. Next thing that you'll see sometimes is some dust. You'll see the thermals pick up dust sometimes. That's a lot more common out west. I'd never seen a dust devil until I moved out to Seattle. And so you don't see too many of those, but on maybe a recently plowed field that's really dry, you'll see some dust devils around here. That's intense. You'll see smaller dust, and the polarized glasses really help with that. You also see the cottonwood trees that will have little fluffs that'll pick up in the thermals. So that's those are, we're moving down the chain of usefulness. And then the next useful thing is the indicator on your transmitter. And again, we'll do that vector math that I was talking about. And it'll generally point to the thermal or to the side of the thermal, as we pointed out. And then the flags are really good too. I haven't put up my thermal pole yet. I have a pole that has a long stringer on it that shows the wind as well. Any other sight ones that I missed? So anyway, that's the 5 senses. Taste is the most useful. You taste one.